Hello, lovers. Welcome back to the Delicious PC. I'm still your host, Mrs. Joy Ugochukwu. Firstly, I want to appreciate everyone who took their time to like, comment, and went as far as sharing our last video. From my heart, I want to say I love you. And to the first timers on this our podcast, I want to say a big welcome to the family. In this community, we are here to learn and inspire each other, and the focus is building the best or making out the best version of ourselves. Would you say that being stubborn is a good or bad trait? Then the next thing, he dragged it again forcefully. This time he was able to get the bag and then he rolled. I pursued him. My focus was, I must get my bag. So when I ran, they went into a street that was just very close to the road. They ran there and I pursued them. I continued struggling with the guy for my bag. The moment I got hold of this bag, I think one of them noticed that somebody was coming with a torch. So they said, this girl na wincho. When they made that statement, they ran away. They left my bag. At that point, I felt a lot of pains around me. That was when I knew how much injury I had encountered in the short time. It was not even up to 10 minutes at that point, but I was in so much pain. My legs, there were so much bruises all around my body, my hands. At that point, that was when I looked at my hands. It was really bleeding, like the blood was so much. So I just stood up, carried my bag. In my mind, I was just like, God, thank you for saving me. Because a lot of things were going through my mind. These were 3 guys. They could easily bundle me, beat me, or even, what if this guy had stabbed me to death? Because I realized that the scars, the stabbing on my hands were gotten from a broken bottle, because I later saw the pieces on the road. And I felt like a thought came to my mind. I was like, what if this guy had mistakenly stabbed me in my tummy? That would have been the end of my life. Then, while I was just battling, trying to get up, this guy they actually saw on the road, they actually saw this man on the road, came close. He was like, what happened? He picked me up. I tried to explain. This man just said, don't worry, just stand up. He took my cardigan that I was holding, tied my hand, wrapped my hands on it. If you look closely to my hands, I still have the marks, the scars on my body. So it's something that traumatized me for a while. And yes, I had to come off it by the grace of God. So he just wrapped my hand and just took me. He just held me like a way a father will hold a little baby. He just took me and told me, why would you be walking? That was the only statement he made. Why will you be walking on this road by this time of the night? This man took me, kept walking with me till I got to the major streets. Like, my street was in a street. When he got to that major street, there were lights. He just turned around and told me, he just said bye and then turned. The moment I turned back, I couldn't find him. That was when I realized that actually God sent me an angel, because it was really strange. I don't know this man from anywhere, and all of a sudden he just disappeared into thin air. So I was just thanking God at that point. Okay, before I go into more details of this story, I want you to take note of 2 scenarios. The first encounter was in church. In these 2, I was determined at that first point. And then the second encounter with these 3 bad guys, I was also determined. But there is a difference between these 2. One showed the sense of stubbornness, and one showed a sense of being strong-willed. When you are stubborn, you are focused on pride. Remember I said we are going to be coming back to that stage. I got to a point when I left the church, I could have easily gone back, knowing that, there is no vehicle. But because of pride, I knew that, going back would just make me feel less than myself. I didn't want to feed the idea of, the letter gave me, I'm just doing what they said. I wanted to prove a point. I wanted to really prove a point that, yes, I am right and I can do what I want to do. And that was the biggest mistake I made that night. If I had turned back, stayed safe, not all this bad encounter or the bad encounter I had that night, I wouldn't have experienced it. Then the second encounter of being determined, was when I met this guy. My goal was that my bag will remain with me despite the negative or the pains or the hurt that was being bestowed on me. I went through a lot of pains that night, but I was not focused on that. What was my focus? My goal. That was my sweat, the money I had in my bag, and my phones. I was just so determined, and that shows a sense of being strong-willed, because that's being it's just directed to a positive goal, not just to fuel my own personal ego. Okay, before we go back to the story, I would like to read something to us concerning this word about stubbornness. I have on my notepad that stubbornness is being steady because of pride or ego, while strong will is being steady till the goal is achieved. It is trusting in the process or an act of faith. So strong will shows that you trust or have faith in yourself. And also it also means that you have faith in God because of what he has told you, because of the promises he has given you. And God can never take his eyes where he sees faith. The scripture says that even though your faith is as little or as small as a mustard seed, what will he do? It can move mountains. So God is one that when he sees, even if it's just a little faith, he will always respond to your call. All right, let's go back to the story. Let me just summarize every other thing before I say something else. And that is when, after my encounter with that angel God sent to me, at that point, I met somebody else, and my cardigan was already very soaked with blood. Like, it was already dropping because the blood was so much. So she was like, "What happened?" I started narrating my story. My eyes were swollen. I was in tears, still shaking from the experience. So she started telling me the encounter that happened at that same point just a few days ago. It happened during the evening time, not as late as my own encounter. It was around 7 or 8 when people were still passing. This lady was raped and things were stolen from her. But I had that same experience, but nothing happened apart from the scars, you get. So I was still grateful to God, but still shaking. Normally at that time, I checked my time, it was already getting to some minutes to 11. Usually at my street, around that time, all the pharmacy shop or the chemist shop must have closed. But in my own case, to show that God was just trying to help me, one particular chemist shop was still open that late in the night. And when I came to her shop, she was like, she wanted to close, but she didn't know what was stopping her from closing her shop. That it may be because of me. So I sat down. She asked me my experience, because normally that's their ethics. They have to ask what the encounter was for the injury. So I narrated my story. She still repeated the same thing that woman told me about an encounter and other stories that has been happening. She just told me, "Girl, you are lucky. You are the one that God really favors you, has shown you grace." So I just bow down. She treated my wound, and after treating me, she didn't collect any money from me. She just told me, "Go home." Then when I left there, something else I want us to take note in order to help us differentiate what's being stubborn and having that attitude of being strong-willed entails. That's the difference between these two things, two words, or two attitude or actions. So when I left there, I remember that I'm going home, and it was already almost 11 in the night. I know I'm going to be meeting my parents. What am I going to tell them? And having a strict parent, I know what it took me to convince my father to let me go for that rehearsal that night. And I knew that if he should find out what happened that very night, he would stop me from going for anything that has to do with night rehearsal, night program, and all. So I just told myself, I'm going to lie. There is nothing else I'm going to do. I'm just going to keep this thing to myself. Then, back to what I wanted to show forth, I want to pin out from this is that when you are working on a wrong foundation, or you are building a structure with an inferior material, you will continue to build on top with inferior material. If you tend to bring a material that has more strong or has a higher quality, the building will collapse. So Stubbornness has a wrong foundation. It is starting a thing with the wrong or inferior materials. For it to continue building, though it will not last long. Remember when we define being strong-willed, it is for a long-lasting goal. While being stubborn is just short-lived. It's just for that particular time, your pride or ego, because of what is happening. You're more concerned about feeling good about the situation. You understand? So for that particular act of being stubborn, you must continue because you have started bad, you must continue in the bad. If you try to change it, everything will just scatter. But that's the best way. The scripture says something. It said, you cannot pour in a new wine in an old wine skin. A new wine must always go with a new wine skin. So for you to be able to correct that attitude of being stubborn, that's you are immovable when you know that the decision you are making is not right, is not profiting anybody. You are just in to satisfy your own personal ego. If you tend to correct things, you have to own it up to yourself. I made a mistake and I have to change it. Bear the consequences and then build something good. And that's you trying to change it. You've changed yourself. You've let go of that bad attitude, and then you are wearing a new wineskin. And then that's when the new attitude of being strong-willed, that's you create a new target. Okay, I want to do this. And then you channel that strength you use in fighting, arguing, to that positive channel or positive attitude. Okay, back to the story. I have already convinced myself or concluded in my mind I'm going to lie. So when I got home, I got at the gate, I knocked, I called my mom, my late mom. So she just walked into the gate, she opened the gate for me and she was like, what happened? Why are you back by this time of the night? I said, luckily for me, she didn't notice the scars, the plaster on my hand and everything, because I was hiding it a bit and it was deep in the night or late in the night. Everywhere was so dark apart from the torch she was holding. So she just with a sleepy eye, she just went in and I went inside. Throughout that night, I could not sleep. I kept on meditating on everything that happened. The next day, I encountered, and the lies kept on going and going and going. Remember what I said? When you start a thing with the wrong material, you end up continue with the wrong things. Unless you want to change it, you have to destroy everything totally. At that point, I didn't want to feel less of myself. And that was the wrong attitude. If I have owned up to myself that I did something wrong and come up to say that, yes, I actually did something wrong and I have learned, then there will be a positive change or be able to come out of it and stop that circle of lies. So up to now, most of my siblings, they don't know about this because I had to feed them with lies in order to cover up that. But that's not the right attitude. So what am I trying to bring to us? Remember we started with saying that, is stubborn a good or bad trait? And I know that some persons would have said, oh, yes, it's good to be stubborn at a particular time. But I believe at this point, you've realized that stubbornness is not a good character. I'm not just saying based on what I've heard. I'm talking now out of experiences. For people that have had encounter with me in time past, they know that I am very, very stubborn. I used to be very, very stubborn. And one character of those that are very stubborn is that they can argue for life. They are never faulty. It's something that I have grown, but it comes back once. But when I realize, oh, this is the bad character, I will just laugh over it and try to correct myself. So if you find yourself always arguing about things just to prove a point that you are always right and every other individual or any other person is wrong, then just know that you have a bad character, and that's being stubborn, which never pays. I have shared my experience, my personal life experience with you today, and I have lots and lots of life experiences about being stubborn and how it turned out. It didn't amount to anything good at the end. So don't wait for you to experience it for yourself, for you to learn. The wise man said that the best way to learn is from other people's experiences. So I've shared my own. Take the lesson and don't make the same mistakes I made. All right, we have come to the end of this podcast, and I want to believe that you've had a taste of my own personal life experiences. and have also learned from it. Remember, we told you that on Joylicious Podcast, we'll be placing tales on tables, serving you different classes of life experiences for you to taste and learn from. So, lovers, if you have been with us at this point and you have enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to like, comment, share, follow us on this page at Joylicious PC. So, till we come on your screen next time, stay living and living the best version of yourself. Love you. Bye.